Released in 1999, Memories Off is the first visual novel to feature writing from Kotaro Uchikoshi. You may know him today from some other things. Developed by Kid, Kindle Imagine Develop, Mem Off is basically what it looks like. A melodramatic romance drama, big on nostalgic waxing on youth and early life tragedy. In the VN community, I guess you'd call that a nakige, though I've never been the most attached to those sorts of terms. You'd place it against similar contemporaries, like the Key VNs, Air and Canon, though it actually quite significantly predates their biggest hit, Clanad. The story centers on a high schooler by the name of Mikami Tomoya, and opens with him meeting his childhood friend, Ayaka, outside his house, who asks him to go with her to the local amusement park, just the two of them. Tomoya asks about inviting a third friend, Yue, but Ayaka wants this trip to be just the two of them. Just as we get a sense for the intimacy between the two, Tomoya is woken up by the loud voice of none other than Yue, riding the train to school with him. Having come back to reality, he thinks about the scene he was in just moments ago. He remarks that while he was riding the train to school, he must have remembered that day. Left with a hazy understanding of the characters and their relationships here, this line clues us in enough to what we just witnessed. Definitely not a recent event, something Tomoya was remembering, a sort of distant memory. From here begins a pretty lengthy period of Tomoya and Yue going about their daily lives, where the story much more clearly establishes our characters and their relationships together. Tomoya evidently is a bit of a dunce. He's lazy, constantly dozing off, practically, maybe actually narcoleptic. I'm genuinely kinda worried for him. With all the time you spend in his head, you get both a sense for his somewhat arrogant sense of dry wit and his complete fundamental inability to study or really think very well in general. His air of cynicism is only matched by his latent exhaustion and a very thin sense of self-loathing. It's immediately apparent that our boy would be lost without his little partner in crime here, Yue. Yue is special. Yue might legitimately be autistic. Her back and forth with Tomoya comprises the better half of the game, and as you might guess, she's the main route that old Uchikoshi himself wrote. Sometimes she's being bullied by Tomoya, and sometimes she's bullying him back. She's as bold and outgoing as she is, surprisingly at times, closed off and anxious. In some senses a mirror of Tomoya, but also a lot smarter than him. There are aspects of social intelligence you could say she lacks, and she has a tendency to whine and mope when Tomoya ticks her off. But she also has what some may call a straight-up, unearned level of confidence in our boy, like way more than he probably really deserves. She genuinely respects him and his thoughts, even if she's also aware of how much of a lazy jackass he can be. And unlike Tomoya, she actually studies her classes properly, and makes some effort to grasp subjects she's bad at. In short, Yue is cool. One of my favorite scenes, and one of the ones that most distinctly establishes the vibe between the two, is this pretty late game scene, where Yue is trying to invite Tomoya out to a movie and just wholly mangles the title, just completely minces it up.
ひまわり組の皿洗い 童話じゃないと思うよ。だってサブタイトルは「ひもたま母ちゃん100日奮闘」聞いたもん。ホームドラマねえ、ある意味そうなのかもしれないけど。ある組織と組織が対立しててね、それで拳銃とかでバンバン撃ち合って戦うの。血とかもドピャーって出て、そうだよ。
Forming the third wheel of the trio is Tomoya's guy friend, Shin. Shin is normal. Shin is very, very normal. Sometimes used as a bit of a dramatic mirror for Tomoya, Shin can be a bit bro-y and lazy and a bit stupid, but at the same time, there's a lot more to him than you could initially expect. Rest assured, Shin too is cool. From here, Memories Off follows a pretty basic VN gameplay loop, especially for the specific retro sort of galgay space it occupies. As the days go by, Tomoya meets various different girls, who all have their own sort of mysterious attitudes and backgrounds, and through the various choices you make, you'll gain points towards each one's ending path. In later releases of the game, like Duet on PS2 here, the game lets you toggle on a handy hint graphic to tell you which choice will lead you towards which ending. I love the little animations here. I left them on just to see those. The other girls in Memories Off are the work of the game's other writers, generally separated up writer by writer. They're fine. I don't have any big issues with any of them, but the game does sort of show its age with this setup. The route splits are about as complex as the choices themselves. They largely don't happen until the last few hours, so you largely have a common route with a lot of little scene branches and focus days for specific girls, which means none of them really intersect with each other's stories, leading to them feeling slightly flat and disconnected in comparison with the game's wider plot. Which is a bit of a shame, because there are a few characters among them that I do like. I picked Koyomi for my one side ending just to see what they were like. She's a woman, 3 years older than Tomoya, who comes in to man the cafeteria when the cafeteria lady, her mother, breaks her hip. And she's got a pretty entertaining back and forth with our main boy, the one person who can basically wholly keep his attitude in check. Unfortunately, I think her ending, while cute and having some pretty funny lines, is slightly boring, and this seemingly at least sort of echoes out through the other three. Otowa was my second consideration for one of the other girls' endings to get, but I decided not to pursue that because by then I was growing a little tired. She's funny. Like Koyomi, I like her dynamic with Tomoya, and wish she could get just a bit more time with the rest of the cast in the main route. Minamo and Shion are fine. Maybe I'd feel more about them if I had actually pursued their routes, but as is, I mostly felt like they stuck out the weirdest, not being particularly funny, and not particularly getting memorable interactions with anyone else. I, overall, kind of view the way these routes are split up as the game's biggest weakness. It means it has a big cast who never really get a chance to interact with each other, and results in a lot of personal arcs that mostly serve as weaker echoes of the game's core arc. It's a huge shame in a game where, in that true route, the absolute best thing about it is how these core characters are bouncing off of each other. So to summarize my thoughts on the game non-spoilerishly, the actual true ending as it is a very fun ride with characters I enjoyed spending time with. It's a little melodramatic and a little stupid. Were I to summarize it in a full spoiler segment, including every detail, many aspects of it would come off quite ridiculous and strange. But that is the appeal of Memories Off. It's a weird-ass little romance drama written by a weird-ass little guy who is learning to write weird-ass little stories. And ultimately the way things all end off is pretty cute. Well, in the ending I got at least. There are 2 endings for UA, and now you might see why I decided against trying to do a full thing about this game. I like it though. Memories Off is cool, but I am also giving up on giving a comprehensive breakdown of the narrative, because I'm sorry, but I kind of just can't. A vibe game, Memories Off is, and when you're separated from those core vibes, this story really can't connect together very well. It's something that'll always sound weirder in description and summarization than it actually does in practice. Though, I don't know, I'm also not like a dedicated big VN video YouTuber, so maybe there's somebody better than me at this kind of thing who could do the game a bit more justice. All I can say is that it involves Uchikoshi deploying a whole ton of abstract metaphorical imagery about memory ghosts of dead girlfriends that would get absolutely like 5 hours of logical explanations and breakdowns in a modern script from him, and a core conflict that would be a lot easier to actually maybe does resolve with polyamory, kind of. There's sort of an abstract throuple element. Oh yeah, and before I forget, Takeshi Abo's soundtrack goes pretty hard. Sorry if this video was a little unsatisfying compared to the usual. I had a much harder time figuring out how to write this one. I didn't really go into Memories Off planning to make a video about it. I just didn't have anything else specifically lined up this month, and felt like I had enough specific thoughts to share about this game. I really do hope it gets a translation one of these days, because it reinvigorated my respect for Uchikoshi as a writer. His prose is really entertaining to read, and the script as a whole demonstrates how much actual talent he has for writing immediately funny and interesting characters. Guy legit just has a talent, even if some of his messier scripts get lost in the weeds. There's also Memories Off Pure, a prequel story that he wrote, but I'm not really one of the people fit to make really long videos breaking down this kind of stuff. I just wanted to say how I felt about a story I came out liking more than I expected. See you next month. We'll be talking about something a bit less sappy and a bit more spooky, and hopefully something a bit easier to focus on. And whatever you do, don't watch the OVA. Of all the bad video game OVAs that I've looked at for videos here, this is pretty easily the worst so far.